Hello and welcome to Prairie Post. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we will learn about the Becker County Museum in Detroit Lakes. But first, joining me now is our guest who's a former Derby girl in Fargo-Moorhead and now an author who has written a book about her time in roller derby in Fargo-Moorhead, Sammy Jones. Sammy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
As we get started, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background, maybe where you're originally from.
I'm originally from Austin, Minnesota, which is Spamtown, USA, down in southern Minnesota, kind of down by Iowa. I grew up there, went to school in St. Cloud to do my undergrad, and then came up to the Fargo-Moorhead area for grad school in 2008.
Okay, and what's your education background?
I have a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from MSUM, and then a BA in Creative Writing from St. Cloud State.
Okay, so tell us about how you got involved then with the roller derby. You got up to Fargo for graduate school, sounds like. So tell us about the roller derby.
It was just kind of an accident that I found it. I kind of start out at the beginning of the book talking really about how I accidentally found Derby, and it was really in a High Plains Reader. It was a newspaper ad, and it was this great cartoon depicting girl, and it said, you know, come see Fargo-Moorhead roller derby girls. And I was like, we have roller derby in town? What? And so from, you know, I went and talked to a few people. I hadn't actually ever seen a bout before, but I heard that tryouts were going to be in July at Skateland, and so I showed up, and that was that. I was hooked right away.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the sport for those watching that may be saying, yeah, they kind of heard of it, or maybe they've seen a little of it, but what are the rules? What's it about?
There's a lot of rules nowadays. I know a lot of people still think of the roller derby way back in the day when it was lots of just full-fledged hitting. It's not really, I mean, yeah, we do hits, but there's no contact, you know, above your head. You can't hit people out on, you know, your ankles or your knees. There's a whole governing body. It's called the Women's Flat Track Derby Association, and they just kind of, they call it WFDA. And that's basically like the NFL or the NBA, but it's a roller derby. So it really is, it's rules. It's still a thing where you've got one person that scores the points, which is the jammer on your team, and then you have 4 blockers out. So each team has 5 people on the track, and for the amount of other skaters, blockers, and it can be the jammer too, that you lap, you get points. So at the end of the day, the most points win the game.
Okay. With that said, did you find it grueling? Was it tough? Because obviously you're practicing for it, and then the bouts that you had.
It was exhausting. For the first, you know, your body's not used to that. That full contact kind of thing. And it took a couple months for me to really get into it. I was constantly sore. But your body you kind of start to harden up to it, and you get to skate a little bit better so you're not falling as much. But it definitely took a lot of practice, a lot of work.
Now, were you good at it?
When I first started, I was like Bambi on skates. I honestly, I couldn't skate to save my life. I thought that rollerblading meant that I could skate, you know, and quad skates are completely 2 different things. So when I started, it was amazing that the league even took me. Because I didn't know how to stop either. I mean, I would run into the walls or fall over. That was how I stopped. But eventually, you know, I kept practicing and practicing, going to the gym and working out, and just, it came along, but it took some time.
Well, tell us about some of the people or maybe characters that you've sort of got to know along the way.
Yeah, I've got some of the coolest friends, and some of everybody from all different walks of life and different professions. I've got teachers. You've got, I mean, in my league now, down in the cities, we've got girls that are firefighters. You've got everything. Basically, I always say we could get stranded on a desert island and we would survive because we've got everybody that knows a little bit of something of everything. But yeah, I don't know, it's the characters, the people that you meet I'm still such good friends with a lot of the FM Derby girls up here, and I don't see them a lot, but they're just some of the most fun and accepting, and yeah, I've never met anyone like it. I've played a lot of sports growing up, and Derby was by far, like, it becomes a family.
Yeah. So then do you stay in touch with these these friends? Have you made long-term friends?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When the book came out last month for the opening reception night, all the Derby girls came and showed up from FMDG, and I hadn't seen them for 5 years. And we still be in contact on Facebook here and there, but yeah, everybody showed up and came out, and they were so excited. It's so nice to know that you got these friends around. They really are friends for a lifetime.
Well, can you talk some about maybe some misconceptions, which I think you write about in the book, or and then maybe the actual truths about women in the sport?
Well, I think the biggest thing is a lot of people just think that the skaters and roller derby are all gay and they're all lesbians. That seems to be a big thing, but they're not. There's a lot of them. They're married with kids. That's the thing about derby, is that it's so accepting. It's so open to anything. That's one of the big misconceptions. Another is I feel like a lot of people maybe don't realize how smart and intelligent these women are. I mean, these are people with PhDs. You've got everybody from moms to PhD people, to people that are going back to school. That's just such a cool mix. You don't have that anywhere else.
Well, so what was your coach or coaches like?
Yeah, we had a lot of our coaches would be like fellow maybe Merby skaters. There's a Merby league in town, so they would help out.
What is a Merby league?
Merby is men's roller derby.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so they would help out with some of our coaching. Otherwise, it would be maybe like former skaters that had been around. It was kind of who fit. So every once in a while, you'd have some people come in, and then some people leave, and then we always have captains on the teams as well. And the captains are also skaters.
So what's the pay like?
You actually pay it. You pay to play. You pay to play. Basically, you pay your dues, and we don't get paid to skate. You're kind of paying to be on the league, but we give back to the community as well, because FMDG is a nonprofit. So a lot of the money that we would get from bouts would go back out into the community.
So why did you end up leaving the Fargo-Moorhead Derby?
I ended up finishing up grad school, like the coursework that I needed to do on campus, finished that up, and still needed to write my thesis, but I could do that anywhere. So I decided to move out to Washington State with a friend, which I talk about in the book, just thinking that maybe I would try something different, and turned out it didn't really work for me out there. So I moved down to the cities, lived with my sister for a while, and then yeah, I've been down there ever since and got my own place and everything.
So why did you write the book?
The book, actually, everything started out as my thesis for my master's. And I had originally, before roller derby, and so I'd started the master's program in 2008, so 2 years before I'd started derby, I had some things that I was working on that I thought was going to be for my thesis. And once I accidentally got into derby, I literally threw all that away. And was like, this is, I think, what I need to write about, because there's not really much written about it. A lot of people don't know about all the ins and outs of roller derby. So yeah, this was basically, it took a long time to do. You get off of campus and you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to find a job, but I still had time to work on my thesis. And so this is a lot of my thesis in here, and then got picked up and somebody was like, let's publish it. So yeah.
Well, with that said, can you let's read a couple of passages from your book?
For sure.
And kind of set up what we're going to hear about.
Yeah, so this first part that I'm going to read, it's called The First Lap, and it basically talks about my first night at Skateland for tryouts. So it kind of I'll give you a little overview of who the skaters are, kind of my feelings. So I'll read a little bit from there. I arrive at Skateland 45 minutes before tryouts are scheduled to begin. Walking into the building, I'm greeted by a cool, air-conditioned atmosphere that smells like Big Red cinnamon gum. I approach a booth where two girls wearing derby t-shirts sit organizing papers. Because I've seen their photos on the FMDG's website, a site I've been stalking for the last month, I recognize one as Ginger Turtle and the other as Charred Coating. You here for tryouts? Charred Coating's pen hovers over a sheet of paper. She looks at me with a partial grin, as if hiding something besides the rest of her marvelously straight white teeth. I nod my head in agreement and say my name. Oh, you're the Sammy who sent me the email asking for tryout information. I smile, nod again, and recollect that in her email reply the word helmet had been spelled H-E-L-M-U-T. which had caused me to wonder if too many derby hits eventually led to complete disregard for Microsoft spell check. I rent a pair of tired-looking tan skates, equipped with bright orange wheels that don't feel or look much different from painted rocks. While I haven't been on roller skates for God knows how long, I had, earlier that day, rummaged through my Christmas decorations, golf accessories, and long-forgotten winter sweaters to find at the bottom of the heap my trusty purple rollerblades from junior high. And while the blades had felt a bit tighter than I remembered, I was able to complete a short spin around my South Fargo neighborhood with 0 wipeouts, a sure sign I was ready to play roller derby. I'll stop there, but going further into there, I definitely did not look like I was ready to start derby that night.
With that said, you talk about all these names. What name did you skate under?
Tony Crush.
Tony
Crush.
Crush.
Yeah, it came from a Luca Toni jersey when I first had started with the league. Luca Toni was a soccer player over in Italy, and so on the back of my shirt it said Tony. So nobody knew who I was. So they were like, "Hey, Tony!" So that kind of stuck. And then Crush came just from a T-shirt, an orange pop Crush, get kind of church. So yeah.
Whatever sticks, right?
Whatever sticks.
Now, what kind of research did you do for the book, or was it from life experiences you had?
It was life experiences. That was the thing, is that it kind of sort of wrote itself almost. I had originally toyed with writing this as fiction, but the story really couldn't be told without it being, the truth. There was nothing, fiction sometimes you think is maybe safer, you can hide behind things, but in the long run, I mean, that wasn't what was going to happen here. And so the stories, everything is real, I mean, everything that happens in this book is what really happened. Sure, there were more things in between, but you got to figure out what to put in and what to leave out.
So what's been the reaction to the book so far?
I've heard a lot of really good things from people. From Fargo, from the FM Derby girls, they love it. I know they were selling it at their last bout up here the other weekend. Down in Minneapolis, my North Star Roller Girls, who I skate for, they love it. Everybody, I've heard some really good things, and I get contacted by people here and there that I haven't talked to for a while, so it's really nice to know that they're out there and they picked up the book too.
Yeah, well, and your chapters seem to be very short, almost snippets. Was that on purpose writing style?
Yeah, they just kind of happened to turn into little vignettes mostly. I'm not quite sure how that happened. It sort of did. I mean, even some of the books I'd read before that, I don't know what it is, but I like some of the shorter chapters sometimes, and I think that's just kind of how it accidentally happened when I was writing this. I would sit down and write, a scene here and there, but it's not like I just sat down and wrote the book from start to finish. It didn't really happen that way. It was a little bit here and there, and that's kind of what you got.
Now, do you have another selection picked out for us
I
to read
do.
about?
Yes.
And let's set this one up then a little bit.
All right, so I'll read a few paragraphs from this chapter called Pandora's Box. So this is basically FMDG's warehouse space. So the girls, we found a place that we wanted to be our own practice space. Where you go, we'd been skating at Skateland, and so we had to go by their hours, where we had enough people in the league at the time where we can afford a warehouse where we could skate. If we wanted to skate at midnight, we could. So this is kind of what we got ourselves into. It was not the Taj Mahal, but it had some really interesting, unique quirks. So I'll read a couple paragraphs from here. One day somebody waves a magic wand and poof, the FM Derby girls have signed the lease to a permanent practice facility. Though I can't recall any meeting that discussed whether signing a 3-year, $4,000 a month contract would be a good idea, it happened anyway. Eager chatter of, we'll be able to skate whenever we want, and FMDG will have a permanent home, is all anyone seems to talk about at practice, which has still been taking place at Skateland and the Urban Plains Center. Even a database gets set up on the Yahoo group to collect ideas of what we should officially call the new practice space. Hands down winner in my book, the Church of Skatin', coined by Char. But as time passes by, the yays and hoorays morph into boos, hisses, and when in the heck are we going to get into the dang building? It turns out the landlord, Mario, functions at the speed of a melting glacier in Antarctica, pre-global warming. The building, which used to be a used car dealership, is practically condemned and not even up to code on city standards. One afternoon I have the pleasure of accompanying a few board members to the warehouse to see how things are progressing. The building, located on the older industrial side of Fargo, is quite the looker. Peeling paint, walls stained with streaks from rusty roof water, a large plastic sign with cracked and broken letters that spell out auto repair. To the north side of the building, a parking lot overflows with run-down, rusted beyond all repair cars. It looks like a bleak graveyard for a dealership that must have filed for bankruptcy during Hoover's era. Beyond two sets of glass doors, up a long staircase and through another glass door, is FMDG's building space. The main entrance room is carpeted and leads to another carpeted room that will eventually serve as the main gear-up, gear-off area. The air is a stale mix of dust and wet dog. To my guess, the main culprit to the poor ozone quality lies in the carpet that looks to be harboring some undiscovered bacteria that will undoubtedly, like everything else in the world, lead to lung cancer. So I'll stop there. It gets worse.
It's worse.
So, yeah.
Wow. So what are you doing now?
I am living in the Minneapolis area. I'm actually working as an assistant editor for a trade magazine down there. And I'm also skating. I've been skating with the North Star Roller Girls since I moved down there in 2012. Taking a little time off right now. I had an injury, had a couple surgeries done on my ankle, and it actually was not from a roller derby injury. It was from running a marathon. So I guess marathon running is more dangerous than derby. But yeah.
Well, maybe so. So you wrote the book, started writing the book as a thesis project. How'd you do in your thesis?
I passed and got the master's.
So, but what I was going to ask you then was, outside of your thesis, what do you hope comes out of the book?
You know, basically it was just to kind of share my story. There's so many skaters around the world now. I mean, derby has become something of a worldwide sport, and everyone has their own story to tell. And there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes. Like, you'd go to see a bout, you know, you go to we call them bouts in the games. You go and you see people skate and you knock each other down, all that stuff. But there's so much more to a league. I mean, the leagues are skater owned and operated. We're our own business. So there's everything there, from friendships to the business side to amazing women who are great athletes. There's so much, and I wanted to try and at least share a little bit of it from my experience up here in Fargo.
Would you go back and do it all over again?
Absolutely. I loved FMDG. There is nothing about it that I didn't like. I mean, I would go back and skate with FMDG in a second if they would move down to maybe Minneapolis.
With that said, though, and you mentioned some of it, it sounds like you learned a lot and even some life lessons out of being in derby.
Absolutely. It kind of accidentally happened. I've been figuring out lately that the things that really stick with me and kind of change me the most are things that accidentally happen. If I try and plan too much, it never works out right. So it was lots of trial and errors, you know, when I was in Fargo. And through derby, I got to meet so many cool people that influenced me and helped me kind of along my way. And so, yeah, so FMDG were the great years, you know, and I would go back and do it again. Yeah. But, you know, I'm now in a different league down in the cities, and I like it down there a lot too.
Yeah. So how many more years do you think you'll skate?
Oh, I'll keep skating until I fall apart completely. It's so addicting. It's so much fun, and I'm really looking forward to getting back out and hardcore skating again. My body will have it.
Yeah. Well, with that said, Sammy, if people want a copy of the book, or where can they go? Who can they contact?
You know, so it's published by NDSU Press, so you can go onto their website to order it there. It's being sold on Amazon. You can get it at your favorite bookstore, have them order it. You might find it in the bookstore.
All right. Well, Sammy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Stay tuned for more. The Becker County Museum in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota has a rich history of preserving the history of the region. Recently, a Smithsonian traveling exhibit about waterways highlighted the museum's ability to attract high-quality work and to educate kids attending the museum. Here's a look at the history and mission of the Becker County Museum.
I love having kids in here. And normally when the kids come to the museum, they can't touch anything. which is unfortunate. We've been working really hard on getting things that kids can reach out and touch. And there's a lot of interactive items on this Smithsonian exhibit, as well as the humanities We Are Water Minnesota exhibit, and then the science exhibits downstairs. So the kids can reach out and they can touch stuff, they can turn dials and push buttons and flip panels. And I think that's what kids learn from best. If they can put their hands on it and move it around and read it to each other or quiz each other on, hey, if I lift up this flap, what are we gonna find?
The exhibit upstairs is the Smithsonian Waterways, and it's really important that we have a local connection to that as well. So a part of the exhibit has been trying to really get people involved on a local level, how water affects them, what their ties to water has been throughout their lives. So the local part of it is really interesting as well. Downstairs we have set up as somewhat of a science lab where there's some different exhibits, more hands-on things.
They make connections for other field trips as well as this one. They kind of connect all of them as well. I think they are important because the more experiences they can get and the more they see, I think it really solidifies the real world experiences that they get, and I think the exposure to that is really important.
The Historical Society was formed in the late 1800s. They moved into a facility in the courthouse in the 1920s, I believe, and stayed there until the 1980s when they moved into our current facility. And over those years, they've continued to grow and expand and collect the artifacts from Becker County. And of course, our mission is to continue to share those with the residents of Becker County and really represent the people of this county and surrounding areas. We had a really fun instance today that happened on display right now. There's a smaller exhibit on the Audubon Bank robbery, and one of the fourth graders that were here said that was my grandpa, and he was actually kidnapped on his birthday. So that adds another level then, that we didn't know it was his birthday. That's another little extra tidbit of information to add to that exhibit.
We do some community outreach. We go out into retirement villages and nursing homes, and we take our museum to those who cannot come into the museum. I also go into schools and I do classroom presentations for kids on an individual class basis. If they can't all come here at once, I take parts of the museum to them. I also do programs now along with Becky, and it takes two of us to get this museum up and running. We also have some volunteers and some part-time staff that help us as well, but it's a lot of work for the two of us, but together we get it done.
The museum is funded through private donation, and then we are blessed to have some support from Becker County. They fund about half of our budget every year. The permanent collection comes from the residents of Becker County. Sometimes we get contacted by various entities if they've got an exhibit that's touring and we're along the way and they want to try to fill a spot. Waterways in particular was a partnership that the Smithsonian did with the Minnesota Humanities Center, so then they had a granting opportunity. We as an entity had to basically fill out a grant application to get that exhibit in. And sometimes we're just looking for exhibits, maybe we're doing a transportation exhibit or a sound, history of telephones and what have you. So then you can, as a director, you go and search for those exhibits. I think it's much deeper than people think it is. We're a pretty diverse county. We have, of course, a portion of the county is on the White Earth Reservation, and we have the gut instinct by people is that we're very Scandinavian based, which of course we are, but there's also a strong German community, a strong Polish community, and I think people find that very interesting as they start to delve a little bit deeper and peel away those layers, if you will. If you're doing research, you can come in, and the museum is open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 4, and you're welcome to come into the research library and do your research. If we have staff available to help you. If it's a big project, you might want to give us the heads up, because sometimes we can try to pull some information ahead of time, but the community is welcome to come in.
The kids have been really receptive to it. It's neat to watch them open their eyes wide, see things that they may not have seen before, look at things in a completely different way. When you can talk to kids, especially on a one-on-one basis, and really see that light bulb go on, that that connection has been made.
I hadn't come into the museum until my kids came on a field trip to the museum, and my oldest son came home and he said, we went to the museum today. And I thought, a county museum, what could a county museum have? And now working here, we basically have everything. We have stuff pre-Civil War, we've got a lot of military memorabilia, everything up to present day items. We've got photographs, our research library is full of genealogy information, and if anybody needs to know anything about Becker County, this is probably the best place to go, because we've got a little bit of everything, and if we don't have it, we know where to get it.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week, but as always, thanks for watching.
Funding for Minnesota Legacy programs are provided by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. And by the members of Prairie Public.